Hey, welcome back. I'm Blake Green. I'm a cloud architect and AWS community builder. Uh, this is part 2 of building a full stack application on AWS. We're following the this sort of workshop from fsgql.com. In the first part of the workshop, we went through the initial like epilogue, and then setting up the infrastructure. We were able to work through a couple of issues, and now we're in chapter 3 where we'll be adding libraries. And so yeah, with that being said, we'll just jump right in and continue moving forward in the workshop. So we're going to be setting up the AWS SDK to interact with DynamoDB. And so, yeah, I still have my repo here. Like I said last time on the previous stream, it was kind of confusing because we started with a like a boilerplate starter project to get going, and then we added some stuff to it. So like the listing database and the booking database. And so I think we're just going to continue to build on that, or start to add libraries so that we can work with those resources that we've deployed. If I go to seed.run, and so the deployment is through this tool called Seed. It's like it's like a managed CI/CD tool. But we got this set up, and it was actually able to deploy our resources once we kind of mess with it a little bit. But you can see here, I think if you click on the resources tab, we can see that I think we can hit view resources. Okay, so it doesn't actually show us the like our DynamoDB table, but oh, here we go. Okay, so if you click on resources, and then obviously we're in our dev environment. We haven't deployed to production yet, but if you click on the resources here to show all your deployed services, you can see that we have our these are all of our resources that we have so far. So here's our bookings DB, and then our listings DB. Deployment bucket, that's probably for the serverless framework. Yeah, and we still have these like API gateway and GraphQL resources. This probably again from the boilerplate starter project, but so far in the workshop, we've only really worked with just the setting up the DynamoDB tables. So so we'll go ahead and add the SDK in our terminal, and I'm just going to move this to the side, I think. Yeah. Hopefully that looks okay. Okay, so if we just do yarn add, I don't think I have yarn. Let me just brew install yarn. So once I add yarn, then we'll go ahead and create a libs directory in the root of the folder and call in a file called dynamodb lib.js. Then we can work on a wrapper around the SDK for DynamoDB and add the following code. So let's see if we even have. Yeah, so we already have a libs directory and a file called dynamodb-libs.js. So, and it looks like all of that is, except for the scan operation. Or okay, let me just yarn add AWS dash SDK. But it looks like it's already all in there already. Just add scan. All right, so the call function has two parameters, action and params. Action will specify what type of DynamoDB operation is taking place, while params will be data or expressions we're sending to Dynamo, like whether to find it to something by a specific attribute, etc. Then we return a promise with the action and params attached to our new instance of DynamoDB. Next, we'll go ahead and populate Dynamo with our listings. Okay. I guess I have to click on this. Running our Lambda locally. Now that we've successfully deployed our function that has a basic hello world query, we can go ahead and start testing it, how to run it locally. In your terminal, run the following. So this is like a feature of the serverless framework that we can test our lambdas locally. So let me see. I'll just go ahead and open up a new terminal session here. We go SLS offline. We'll see that. We'll see a bunch of errors. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, so it looks like it actually might have worked. We're just getting some warnings about our environment variables. Yeah, I still have an issue with that like reference to our DynamoDB table, but I don't think it stopped us from being able to test this locally. So at the bottom here, it says that it's listening on localhost 4000. So let's just go ahead and check that out. Oh, wait, but we need to, yeah, slash GraphQL is our endpoint. Cool. So then we get the nice little GraphQL playground here. I'll just expand that a little bit. Cool. So that works. GraphQL Playground is where you can test your queries, mutations, or subscriptions for your GraphQL API and see the responses that come back from your server. Also, it shows you the schema for your API, which makes it self-documenting to a certain extent. Now you can run the following query. Yeah, so this is pretty cool. Like I haven't done a ton of like local um local development or like testing like this. So this offline feature from the serverless framework is really nice. So if we just run a query called hello, let's see what happens. Um, there's a schema tab over here. Let me see if this like pops up with our actual like GraphQL schema that we defined. It's taking a long time. I don't know if that's just because of my crappy internet connection or what. No offense, Comcast, but yeah, you guys are not the greatest. Okay, well let's see what's going on here. So we should be getting some data back that replies with your GraphQL API is now live. We'll check on that in a second here. Oh, well, I guess this is the end of the chapter or part of the chapter. Let's continue to set up other libraries we need. Okay. I did that query right? Let's see. All right. Anyways, maybe that'll. It's still trying. I feel like it would have like aired out by now if it was there was something wrong, but I could be wrong. All right. So adding listings to Dynamo. In this post, we will manually add listings to DynamoDB. Usually, we could create a mutation to add listings for someone, but for the sake of this course, I've created all the listings for you. First off, let's create a folder called seed data and create a file called listings.json, and then head over to this gist and copy the contents of it into the file you've just created. Then create a file called insertdata.js and add the following. So where's the gist at? Oh, I guess this is a link right here. So if you didn't know, like the word gist is a link to the gist. Oh, and it added it to the so this is our listings.json, basically all of our data that we need. Alrighty, so just gonna copy pasta. Don't feel like typing all that out. That would be brutal. Um, so we're not getting like any errors. We still have this like terminal session going for our query here, but what does this say? Docs. Hmm. I wonder if it's because we. Oh wait, did I? Hmm. Let's try to log into. I'm gonna try to log into the AWS console, see if we get any like uh, logs or anything like that in the Lambda console. I'm curious to see because we're not really getting anything other than just a spinning wheel on this GraphQL playground, but maybe there's something in the logs of the Lambda console that could maybe give us some more information as to what is going on. So let's throw this up here. Here's our Lunar Tour API. That's all like commented out. Hmm. I mean, it's totally possible that it could be like my crappy internet connection. Like I said, that is definitely a possibility. But yeah, if we go to monitoring, like if there's any type of invocation, right? Because we should see something that's hitting the uh, the Lambda function, right? Like let's see if we can view the logs in CloudWatch. I didn't see anything that stood out there though. Yeah, there's no logs. Huh. Well, let's go back to that previous running our Lambda locally. So we were able to start the serverless offline, and we were able to hit this endpoint to get to the GraphQL playground. We ran this query, but we didn't get anything back. We didn't get a response. Bummer. Okay, let's see here. Hmm. Like where was all this like code that this is coming from? Oh, it's in here, huh? It's in our Yeah, so like this should be our GraphQL handler. Uh, Interesting. Oh, and this is our schema. Okay. Yeah, so that should work. I mean, all right. We'll just chalk it up to my internet being crappy. So we'll keep going here. Okay, so now we are going to be adding listings to DynamoDB, and we have already copied the listings.json. So we will create a folder called seed data. Just making sure it doesn't already exist. Seed dash data. Then in there, we'll create a file called listings.json. And then I'm just copying that, copying the JSON data from the gist that we looked at. So we'll save that. Okay, and now we'll create a file called insertdata.js. This function allows us to add all the listings into Dynamo dynamically. Alrighty, so but do we create this file inside of seed data, the seed data directory, or do we create that file in our libs directory? Okay, so first off, we set up the SDK, then we import the JSON file with the listings, loop over them to create a record in the table. So I think I'm just we'll try it again. Like, I think the lack of detail in the workshop or this course, whatever you want to call it, it's kind of like frustrating a little bit, but can't be perfect. Insert data. Yes. All right, so we're gonna set up the SDK. So const AWS equals require AWS dash SDK. AWS.config.update region US East 1. Scary, right? I don't think I've ever used US East 1 for anything other than like development. I don't think I trust it with any production. Seems like that's if there's an outage with AWS, more times than not, it's definitely US East 1 that's having problems. Like their chaos engineering region or something. Oh, we need to, okay, so that sets up our that sets up the SDK, and now I guess I guessed right by adding this insert data into the seed data directory, because now we are going to bring it in using a local path, listings.json. And then we'll console log the listings.init. Okay, so now let's insert them into the table and loop over the listings. So we're going to use the map function. So listings.map. Listing params equals, and then the table name. Prize where you're hard coding this value here, right? Because what happens if we promote this to production? Item. So now I think we're just pulling values from the data, right? So like dot cover photo guide, just kind of, I think we're just parsing the data that we are from from that JSON file. Guide dot avatar, and this way we could use it in the application, right? L dot guide dot bio name L dot guide dot name. Okay, then we need listing activities. L dot listing activities. Let me get rid of this sidebar here. Hopefully that looks a little bit better. All right, listing description. And then we need listing ID. L dot listing ID. Listing location. And then listing type. Number of days. Price. Special amount. special type. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's all the items in our table. I think I've said this before too, but the reason why I'm not just copying and pasting is because I like to type it out. I learn better that way when I'm able to sort of type it out and get familiar with the syntax and whatnot. So, okay, so now we are going to use the DynamoDB doc client to put listing params and then a function error and data. Is that data? Oh, data. Okay. So now we're going to loop through it, I guess, and say if error. Okay, there's a little error checking here. And then we're going to console dot error. And we're going to say unable to add listing. User dot name. And then dot error JSON. Space there. And then JSON dot stringify. Whoa. Error null 2. All right. Oh, and then otherwise or else we're going to console log put item succeeded. Oof. Okay. Awesome. So we are looping through the data and sort of like parsing the data on each item to get each of these values, and each time it's going to put that item into the DynamoDB table. And then we have some error checking here that says if it's not able to do it, it will console error that, and then if it is, it'll say it succeeded. So cool beans. All right, where are we? So that is chapter 3. Congratulations. Now we are on to chapter 4, creating our GraphQL schema. Now we finally get to the core of the course. Finally, we will start building our first query that will show us to grab all lunar destinations from DynamoDB. So let's go into our schema.js file and add the necessary types to get a query running. Dope. All right, where the heck is our schema.json? Here it is. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I need to save this guy. Okay, schema.json. We are going to see. See, like if I didn't know otherwise, I would probably just, copy and paste this into this schema.js file, but it's there. I mean, do we copy it inside of this schema variable and then export it? I think so, because we basically, I think so. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to just add these types into, we're just going to add to this guy. We'll see if it happens. That was weird. Okay, so the first type is listing type. Name is string. Right, and then type listing activities. So much more room for activities. All right, that's also a string. Type guide. Name is a string. Bio, also a string. Avatar. I'm just gonna copy this and paste it. Because this is based, this is all from that file that we were just inserting, right? So all these items that we're adding to the DynamoDB table, we're just sort of adding types to them, or mapping the type to the data. Alrighty, so I think that's it. We shall see. What are we doing here? Probably ask myself that every day. We are creating 3 separate types: listing type, listing activities, and guide. To be able to see these types in our listing type, we're creating a listing type that has the various attributes we need for this data type. Next up, we will set up the query type. Okay. Type query. It all listings. Okay. So this listing type basically becomes a child of this get all listings query. So instead of trying to iterate through this listings type, we just kind of just allows us to have that inheritance, I guess, right? Sounds right in my head. All right, so we're creating a get all listings query that will return an array of the listing. See, sometimes all you need to do is just continue reading and it will tell you. Anyways, so now we went through the process of editing our schema in a SDL manner to create a query. You also follow a code first approach to creating a GraphQL schema. All right, we're on chapter 4, right? What was that? Creating our GraphQL schema. All right, export listing functions. Here we're going to set up the function that grabs all of our listings and export it so that Apollo server can pick up the query. First, let's go into query.js and create the following function. Do we have a query.js? Let me save this guy. We do not have. Oh, here we go. It's in our resolvers folder. There's a query.js. Oh, and that's what we were supposed to. Interesting. This is what we were supposed to get back from our GraphQL playground. You can see. Okay. Okay, so let's see here. Again, I'm just gonna add to it because I don't want to. I don't really know what is supposed to be in here. All right, get all listings equals async args context. Return null. All we're doing here is creating an async function that accepts args and context as a property. Next, we're going to import this function from above into our index.js file. So if I open up index.js, so we already have hello. I bet we can just add it all listings from query, right? So we have both still. And then yeah, and then we can, I'm just gonna let's see if this works. I don't know. Hit all listings. Hit all listings. It probably won't work, but whoops. We are creating a resolvers object that has a query property that returns our get all listings function. Now we can start writing the code to return data. Complete listing query. In this part, we are going we're going to get data from DynamoDB and return it. Back in our query.js file, we need to import the DynamoDB wrapper at the top of the file. Okay. So I'm going to bump this guy down, and we're going to say import star as dynamo db lib from down libs dynamo db. Where is that from? Oh, duh. Okay. Next, we can create the parameters for a DynamoDB operation. Okay, so const params equals table name equals process dot env dot listing db or dev dot listing. What do we call it? Dev dot listing db or listings. Okay. That doesn't seem right, but okay. Just a simple object that has the table name. Reason why we have the or operation is for when we test, Jest cannot pick up the env file. Next, we have a try block or try catch block that will fetch the data and return it. And that is probably within this get all listings function, I'm assuming. Yeah, okay. See, again, like there's kind of just a lack of detail that is kind of confusing and a little frustrating. Like here it should say like within the, I guess he's just kind of assuming too much to like somebody that's trying to learn this, is that like if you didn't know better, like you'd be like, where the hell do I put this code? But maybe just add like a little sentence here that says replace the return null with this try catch block. But anyways, I'm being too hard on him. Like, all right, so we're gonna try const results equals await dynamo db lib dot call, and then we're gonna scan the DynamoDB table. What's our other? What is that? Params. We need params. I wish I could scroll. Okay. So first we're going to try to scan the DynamoDB table, right? And then if the result in items in length is equal to 0, we're going to return and say, you have no listings. Otherwise, or else, we're going to say return result dot items and map I equals arrow function. And we're going to say listing ID, all this crap again, I dot listing ID. And then the covered photo equals I dot cover photo, listing name equals I dot listing name. Listing type. This is an interesting one. So I dot listing type. We're gonna map m equals arrow function listing location. Oops, location. Okay, so listing activities is I dot listing activities, and then we're going to map that as well. Did I screw something up here? Oh yeah, oops. So we want to say, give that a variable called k, arrow function. Name is k. Okay. Okay. And then we're going to say special type. Special amount. And special amount. Rating. Guide. In bio is I guide dot bio. Avatar. Cool. Okay. So we're going to try all that. And then obviously we need to add our catch. Wait, yeah, down here. Catch error and return message equals e dot message code. Oops. Equals 500. Alrighty, I think that is what we needed. Okay, so some additional notes here is that first we return a promise and execute a scan on DynamoDB and pass through our params object. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So basically, I mean, the only parameters that we have is just telling it what table name to use when it scans, right? So if we have we have an if else block to check if there's no listings. If they are, return all listings. If not, we will receive this message that says you have no listings. Because we're returning an array, we need to map over each element in the array and returning each field in the object. Okay. In the case of the listing type and listing activities, these are nested arrays. So you can see these are nested arrays. I don't know if that's big enough or not. That's a little, yeah. Whatever. So yeah, we have these nested arrays within the listing object itself, which we look over to return each element in the array. So if we look at like the data that we're putting in, right, putting into the DynamoDB table, here's like the listing activities, and you can see that there's a list of activities like deep space food production, soil studies, botany experiments. Okay. So this just kind of helps us, here's the listing activities right here. That just helps us iterate through that list of activities. In the case of the guide, all we're doing is returning back the properties in the guide object. Okay. Yeah, because again, like if you look at, did I exit out of it? If we look at the listings.json, right, here's the guide object, but these don't change on each of the entries. So they'll all have like an avatar, a bio, and a name. Whereas like with listing activities, each item in the list could be different, right? So I think that's what it's trying to say. Alrighty. So lastly, we return an error message and code in the case anything fails. Now let's go to the playground and test the query by executing the following query. It's just interesting to me that like we haven't uploaded our code to deploy this. So like if the code isn't up in like in our, all this code that we just wrote is not in our project or in the resources that we're using like offline, like how does it even know? Uh, how would it even know if we ran this query that we would get that data back? I'm not too sure, but we will try. Holy moly. Oh, so I left this terminal session running where we had the serverless offline. And it looks like watching it was watching us, watching for changes. Uh, so that is interesting. But I'm just gonna copy this query here, and we'll see if I mean that hello query was still running. So I'm kind of thinking that it is not my internet. Yeah, this sucks. Why doesn't it work? Get all listings. I mean, we are doing exactly the same thing. So I'm gonna try to. All right, let's exit out of this guy. Let's try and restart that and see if something changes. Maybe I should perhaps pay attention to some of these error messages. Deprecation warning. All right. Well, let's try this one more time. See if /GraphQL. That did not work. Error. There can be only one type name. Oh, okay. So yeah, that was my bad. Because I left in the hello or the original like query. So that was over in schema.js, and we had that hello query. So I guess can't have both, I guess. So let's try that and then see if I can refresh here, maybe. Error while loading GraphQL. Okay. So yeah, I guess no, we need it in our index. So we're gonna say goodbye to hello. See what I did there. And then I'm just gonna get rid of this as well. We'll save that. There it goes. Okay. So now if we hit that, it does not like this offline mode or something. Something's a little off, I guess. Anyways, yeah. So I don't know what's going on with the with this like local, like testing it locally. I don't know if it's something on my side that I'm doing wrong, or but it doesn't seem to be working. So I think that was a complete listing query. Let's see if we can get through chapter 5, and we'll call it a day. All right. So in this chapter, we will attempt to get a single listing from Dynamo when given a listing ID. To do this, let's edit our schema and add the following query. Okay. Let me actually put those back. So if we go back into schema.js, and then I guess we're going to add being able to get a single listing. Get a listing. So we have this query for get all listings and then get a listing. Next, let's go ahead and export get a listing query. Go to the query.js and add the following code. Well, we don't need our hello. We don't need our hello function anymore. So let's change this to get a listing. Oops. And that is async. And we are going to return null. Okay. And then now in our index.js, whatever that might be, we're going to add it a listing, and we are going to copy this. And add get a listing to our query. Complete a listing query. So now let's do what we did in the previous query, and let's start in the query.js file and add the following. So in our parameters, we already have the table name, and now we're going to add a filter expression. And then we'll have the listing ID equals listing ID. And then we'll say the expression attribute values. Alrighty. So in this params object, we are using a filter expression to get a specific listing from the table, which is the listing ID in our case. The expression attributes values object is where we need to assign a value to the property we declared in the filter expression. Okay. Args is short for arguments. We take in from query. In this case, we are taking in the listing ID. Okay. Next, we can start sending these params to DynamoDB and return the selected listing. Okay. So again, like we are. Yeah, so it's kind of the same as what we were doing in get all listings, except now you can see we're kind of adding like these indexes of the listing items. And it's just, yeah, okay. So just scanning like all of our listings for specific indexes. So for this one, I'm just gonna copy in Pasta this try catch block. And it makes sense, it's like I said, it's very similar to what we've already done with get all listings. So except we're just, trying to get a single ID. So in our try catch, we do a scan again to retrieve the listing. We check to see if the scan returned a listing that exists. If so, we return the data associated with that listing. Since it was a filter scan, it will still be an array, and we can always assume that it will be the first element in the list, right? So that's where we have all these indexes 0 on the items, right? So the first item in each list. Lastly, we return a message if the code is an error. Next, we'll see, like, how did he get this listing ID? Oh, is that because it's part of our listings.json? Oh yeah, listing IDs right here. I'm gonna try this. Or I guess I'll just have not had any luck with this this local playground, so I doubt that this is gonna work either, but we'll try it. Yeah. That sucks. I'm not sure. Wish I knew why it wasn't working or if it provided more information, but like, all right, one last thing, right? Because so we have now finished chapter 5. Yeah. So next is okay, yeah, that's probably a good place to stop. So next is making a booking mutation. Looks like we're gonna finally set up Stripe and start working with manipulating our data, which would be pretty cool. And so one last thing is let's go ahead and like commit our code to GitHub, adding data. I don't know. So when we add that, right, we should see our seed pipeline kickoff, right? So here, this is what we just committed to our project, and now it's now we're updating our deployed resources, right? And if I go, so it looks like it's working, kind of. Okay, so yeah, we got a successfully deployed. So now I'm kind of curious just to see if we can hit that endpoint, right? So go to Lambda. I got logged out of my console here. So yeah, it's super weird. Like, why is it just that GraphQL .js? So basically, okay, so this is our GraphQL.js that's within our function here. What is this file? Okay. So for this endpoint, can we get to this? Nope. Hmm. Well, let's see, like, let's take a look at the Dynamo. Curious to see if we were actually able to add that data to our table, so our listings, yeah, it's still empty. So I don't really understand. Maybe I'm just getting ahead of myself and need to just chill pill for a second. But because I thought that by us deploying the resources that it would the Lambda function would go through and add loop through each of those items in the listing.json file and add them to our DynamoDB table, but apparently not. But again, I could be just getting ahead of myself, and we'll just wait to see what happens. So, all right, that is all for today. In the next stream, like I said, we'll try to get through chapter 6, 7, and 8, and hopefully that will finish off, deploying our back end. And yeah, we'll keep moving forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.